Because you cannot talk of political independence when you have no economic independence. Economic independence is the most important thing. Others follow. And we must empower our people and make sure they are protected from unfair competition and mistreatment by people who do not belong here. And I'm not saying we have anything against investors. We want them to come, but they want them to work with us. And we do.
I freed 1,000 slaves. I could have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. Harriet Tubman. Hello guys, and welcome back again to my YouTube channel. It's your girl Faith Martins. So today we'll be discussing the $10 billion loan that was cancelled by the Tanzanian president Magufuli. And again, our African leaders are beginning to wake up from slumber. There is this amazing speech by an African leader about the previous loans from the Chinese and how they've decided to only accept mutually beneficial contracts between the Chinese and their country. Please, if today is your first time seeing me on YouTube, you're absolutely welcome. If you've not still subscribed and you're a returning subscriber, you are so wrong. Click the subscribe button below, like this video and share this video. In recent times, African leaders signed this Chinese loan they know they cannot be able to pay back within the agreed time frame, or mostly proceed with the loan because of the kickbacks and benefits of some individual politicians. The defaulted loans most times lead to seizure of major facilities to make up for the amounts involved. African leaders are beginning to listen to their citizens by taking commendable actions to save their dying reputation, confronting these Chinese to loosen up their terms or face suspension of those contracts. In recent times, they are building courage to do the needful. The Tanzanian head of state, John Magufuli, recently cancelled an agreed $10 billion Chinese loan. This loan was agreed by his predecessor, Jakaya Kikwete, with Chinese investors to construct a port at Mbegani Creek in Bagamoyo, just north of Dar es Salaam. The Chinese investors agreed with the previous Tanzania administration to build a port with condition that they will be granted 30-year guarantee, 99 years uninterrupted lease with an attached outrageous demand that the Tanzanian government will have absolutely no power to raise concerns on whoever invests in the port during the period stated. 99 years uninterrupted lease. That is so huge. 30 years guarantee. Wow. And an administration penned their signature to these agreements. This sounds really ridiculous. It is very ridiculous. But it was actually signed by a certain government, which raises a question of whether our lead negotiators read and understand agreements before appending their signatures. Let me quote John Magufuli, the Tanzanian president. He says, "These above terms and conditions could only be accepted by mad people." So the head of state for Tanzania decided to renegotiate with the Chinese investors, telling them to bring down the lease to 33 years instead of the initial 99 years that they negotiated. The government equally stated clearly no tax or utility exemption from the investors. He also stated that the investors will need approval from the government for any new investment that will be going on the port. The government issued them a time frame which they failed to agree with, resulting to the suspension of this agreement. Wow, this agreement is so ridiculous. May I state that this head of state is not the only African head of state to cancel such ridiculous agreement by the Chinese. In Sierra Leone, the Julius Maada Bio administration also cancelled a $400 million airport construction agreement in 2018. He stated that it is uneconomical to agree to such agreements with reasons that their present airport is underused. With reasons that their present airport is grossly underutilized. And also in Kenya, there was a cancellation of a $2 billion coal plant contract. This doesn't mean there are no African countries that are agreeing to these ridiculous agreements by the Chinese. Kudos to the head of state of Tanzania, John Magufuli, for this brave approach. We do pray that our African leaders move away from this killer Chinese loans, which is currently looming a neo-colonial trap, and look inwards in Africa to use our transformational ideas for the good use of our resources. If the government will ever consider having negotiations with the Chinese investors, it should always come with a reasonable and mutually beneficial contract. This African leader buttressed so much on the benefits of economical independence. Aside gaining political independence from our previous colonial masters, he talked about how every contract that should be signed with the Chinese should be mutually beneficial between both countries. He stressed on why a Chinese company will have all their labor force brought in from China. Why not have a collaboration with the country's professionals, and their professionals work on it as a team in a contract. He buttressed on the need for African leaders to look into these Chinese contracts that are being signed. He also buttressed on why our leaders should ensure that we are protected security-wise, fair treatment, low payment of salaries from investors or people who do not belong to their countries.
They are coming with everything: engineers, surveyors, plant operators, drivers. Why do you need to bring somebody from China to drive a truck? Why do you need to bring somebody from China to drive an excavator? We have plant operators here in thousands who are jobless. Our people have closed down their shops. There's no business.
Is it just the United States, or do you believe that China is also playing a role in jockeying for the resources of Africa?
China is playing a major role because China is buying property in Africa. Mm-hmm. For example, Mozambique, which is a Portuguese-speaking language.
10 years, this will be a Chinese colony. Because you cannot talk of political independence when you have no economic independence. Economic independence is the most important thing. Others follow. And we must empower our people and make sure they are protected from unfair competition and mistreatment by people who do not belong here. And I'm not saying we have anything against investors. We want them to come, but we want them to work with us, and we don't want them to come and destroy the local capacity. And if we don't protect the local capacity and we allow the Chinese to kill the local capacity, they are quoting laws so that our people cannot compete. In another 10 years, when the entire local capacity is entirely destroyed, they'll come back now and raise the prices. And there's nothing we shall do because we shall have no capacity. So this bill intends to protect the local capacity. We want them to partner with us so that there's technology transfer. We want our engineers to be parts of these projects. They are coming with everything: engineers, surveyors, plant operators, drivers. Why do you need to bring somebody from China to drive a truck? Why do you need to bring somebody from China to drive an excavator? We have plant operators here in thousands who are jobless. Our people have closed down their shops. There's no business. These guys now have come, they are even hawking. They are opening retail shops, and we want to challenge the Minister of Interior. We want to challenge the Cabinet Secretary, who is very abrasive and who looks very active. All these Chinese who are here doing manual work, where did they get permits to come to this country? Those who are here and they have no business being here, they be put on a plane back to their country. Those who need to stay here, they can stay. Those who have skills that are not available locally. But gentlemen, are you telling me that we have no people who can repair tubes when there is a tire burst? Surely, these people have come too much. This is an invasion.
For example, between 1990 and the year 2000, the United States, Canada, and Europe contributed about $6 billion in contraceptives, not to help the people, not to give clean water, clean food. That is
not to fight malaria, for example.
No, of course, perish the thought. Never let them die. That's the whole idea. So, in our work in HLI, we denounced this reality to make the Africans aware that they have to defend themselves against the influence.
Is it just the United States, or do you believe that China is also playing a role in jockeying for the resources of Africa?
China is playing a major role because China is buying property in Africa. Mm-hmm. For example, Mozambique, which is a Portuguese-speaking language country, when Portugal was in charge of Mozambique, they used to export rice Now they are importing rice from China because they cannot produce. The socialism has wrecked the production of rice. And the Chinese come and buy farms. So about almost a third of Mozambique belongs to China. So I was in other countries of Africa, the same reality. In South Africa, the Chinese are buying property, buying land in Africa. So, and they send their own workers, the Chinese workers. They don't employ people of the place. They send their own workers to populate.
Guys, if you've watched this video from the beginning till this stage, I am so grateful. Please do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, guys. I would love to see you guys in my next video. Bye.